everyone. Welcome back to the Earth on Survival Guide, the podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters. With your questers Josh and Dan, I am Dan.
I'm Josh.
And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things Trollical, part 4 or 5 or something. I've lost count of all these things. But anyway, if you have any questions for us, please feel free to drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com or call and leave us a voicemail. We like those too. So today, we're going to talk about the southern slopes of the Twilight Peaks and the exiled troll moots upon those slopes. So we've done the east, and then the north, the central, and then the west, and now we're doing the south. So the southern and south-facing slopes, these are the scorched and ash-covered hills, barren rock, gray forest. This is like inhospitable Mad Max terrain. This is about as bad as it gets. These are inhabited by a variety of creatures, troll outcasts, bandits, and pirates. So, fun place to visit.
Yeah, the southern slopes of the Twilight Peaks are the ones that overlook Death's Sea and the Scarlet Sea to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
And so consequently do not have the protection of a high mountain range between them and Death's Sea. Even the Black Fangs, who are in another equally inhospitable area, are on the northern side of that ridge, so that they are at least somewhat protected from the worst aspects of Death's Sea by the mountains. And then they've got the Great Sword Valley and so forth.
Yeah.
There. But there is not much. It is rough, dangerous, inhospitable territory.
Agreed. So we'll get to some of the highlights here, because all this setting is, of course, setting for the troll moots that live here. And Liv is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. The main part that you're going to notice is the fire slopes. These are the lava flows going from Death's Eyes all the way down to Death's Sea on the very, very western part, right up against the river between that and Carafad. So the fire slopes are these steep slopes hitting the shores of Death's Sea. They are tall cliff sides, deep crevices, very large cracks you can fall into. You will find, however, veins of true earth and veins of firestones. This is where you'll also find lairs for fire eagles, fire birds, and of course, magma beasts, because we haven't talked about them yet at all.
No, magma beasts are powerful fire creatures that are definitely a challenge for any kind of even higher powered adepts.
Yeah.
Just being near them will cause fire damage. They are nasty, nasty, nasty things.
Yes. But also on the fire slopes, you will find crystal and or obsidian formations, because that's what obsidian is volcanic glass. And also, by the way, just in case there wasn't enough danger for you, every once in a while you'll have these bursts of fire and magma pop up as well. So kind of reminds me of the Princess Bride and the ROUS is just the forest they go through, where every once in a while these
fire
things
swamp
just pop up. Fire swamp, thank you. Couldn't think of that. Name escaped me. But yeah, this is not a great place to visit. You don't want to go on vacation here.
Visually, I would immediately say, think of Return of the King, of the third Lord of the Rings movie, when Frodo and Sam, like the slopes of Mount Doom kind of situation. Or look at images of when you get like volcanic eruptions in Iceland.
Oh, yeah.
The Hawaiian Islands or something like that, in terms of the like raw natural power that can be present there.
Mm-hmm.
Couple that with like the hot springs and whatnot in Yellowstone and like Wyoming and whatnot, which doesn't necessarily quite have the broken ground, but just the hot danger that can be present there. There's a lot of natural hazards that will cause you a lot of problems. Plus the fact that you've got these steep slopes and the hot air currents coming in off of Death's Sea. The winds, if you get too close to the fire slopes, a stray gust could, wreck your airship on those craggy peaks and basically leave you to die.
Yeah, then there's all these crevasses you could fall into. And so it's just, I mean, they're wide and far and deep, and your footing is already slanted because it's not level ground. And then you have to, jump on a slant to get across these crevasses if you can. If you don't have Great Leap, good luck with that. And so working our way eastward, we get to the Burning Shore. This is the shore between the Fire Slopes and the Scarlet Sea. So it's right smack dab in the middle. This is the northwestern shore, to be more precise, of the Scarlet Sea. This is all volcanic black rock. So very rough.
Black sand, yeah.
Here you will find elemental fire creatures and more steam vents like geysers, to Josh's point. There are occasional deposits of living crystal and or orichalcum just lying out in the open, because why would they not be? Who's going to be here? And maybe, by the way, some ancient ruins on the Burning Shore. So perhaps there's a legend here you can tease your players with to drop by this inhospitable outpost.
Yeah. The legends of these ruins could be of a time back from before Death's Sea was molten lava.
Yeah.
Back when it was still water.
Fertile.
And so that these would have been settlements and cities and so forth that would have been along the shores of that body of water. Would have been ages and ages ago. But we're talking about, the ruins like of old Scavia. We talked about them a little bit, the Scavian barges and the society and the place that they used to have there around the area that used to be the mist swamps and so forth.
Yeah.
Rough, inhospitable, black sand beaches, very rocky, very treacherous. Here's another image for you. If you have seen the Stephen King miniseries Storm of the Century.
Oh, wow.
That is set on like an isolated island during a storm, but it's off the main coast. And so it's got that rocky coastline. Mm-hmm. You're not talking about like the California sand beaches or anything. You're talking about like rough, rocky, craggy coastline. But instead of water, it's lava. That's the kind of situation that you're dealing with.
Yeah. I just have the line from The Mask of Zorro. Welcome to Hell's Outhouse. That's the Burning Shore.
Yeah. Storm of the Century, incidentally, an interesting thing that you could mine for horror-related ideas, given what kind of goes on in the plot line of that show.
Well, yeah, it's Stephen King, so there's going to be something nasty in there somewhere. So on further to the north, actually, of the Burning Shore, we get to the Ashen Hills. These are the lowlands between the Grey Forest and the Burning Shore. So we're going up a little bit in elevation. This has covered all of this. The Ashen Hills are entirely covered with a fine layer of volcanic ash, tumbled boulders, and some sharp rocks. What lives here, aside from the troll moots we get to, are mulgrams, hellhounds, hydras, and volus. Voluses? Volus plural? Voli? Whatever. Some voluses. Also more crevasses and ash. So this is all like quicksand traps. Or that trap from, what is it, The Rise of Skywalker, the third movie, where they walk out of this black sand and all of a sudden just like fall through to caverns below.
Oh.
It was a Star Wars movie. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it was in one of the sequel trilogy. I don't remember which one.
I think it was Rise of Skywalker, the last one. Anyway, yeah, so this is like quicksand, but volcanic ash quicksand traps. So
slightly more hospitable than the Burning Shore, which is to say not very, but
yeah, only slightly.
At least your skin is not going to be boiled off of your bones by simply being there for an extended period of time.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to be cooked slowly. The Ashen Hills are home to exiles from the troll moots, and those exiles here live in caves and extinct lava tubes, and it's affectionately known as Kavaheim or Mudhome. And this is a settlement that is actually somewhere in the Ashen Hills. Game Masters, make it up where you want it to be. There you are. Just north of that is the Grey Forest. The bark on these trees is all pale gray. So it's not brown, it's not usual wooden colors that you've found otherwise in nature. And all the Grey Forest, by the way, is where they get all of the wood and trees used to making airships of the Crystal Raiders. So this is a very heavy, dark, gray It's a very heavy wood. It is also dark gray. How's that? Go for it.
Yeah. The Thunder Sky and Swiftwind moots get a lot of their wood from this area. The Greatsword Valley is sort of the source for the Blackfangs and Bloodlores on the other side of Skytoucher Mountain. And then I think one of the Eastern moots also has a little bit of agreement territory in terms of being able to take some of the wood. We talked about that, I think, where they're, they supposedly kind of each have their own claims, but there's often disputes over who gets to take what and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Stoneclaws and the Swiftwinds, nobody really has any claim on parts of the Grey Forest. There's just the occasional agreement, don't take too much right now. Maybe a couple of trees. Don't, clear cut the whole place and take all the trees you want. We need to make sure this is still here available later on.
It is a very large area, and there is plenty of wood given how much they actually need to use. And so the disputes tend to come when harvesting groups run into each other from rival moots, as opposed to fighting for control over them the way that you would think of a traditional border territory.
Exactly. So those are the geographical areas of the southern Twilight Peaks. So we're going to come back to the Ashen Hills and talk about, this is where the troll moots actually live, because you can't live on the fire slopes. It's just way too hot. You can't live in the burning shore. Again, way too hot, too many crevasses and stuff. So the Ashen
Hills, too many
Hills
dangerous creatures that come out of Death's Sea and would make a snack of you, even a big troll.
Totally. So the Ashen Hills is kind of where they have to live, because again, nobody has claim over the Grey Forest. And the Ashen Hills is where the Kavaheim, resides. This is not a traditional troll moot. This is mostly, if not all, banished trolls from other troll moots. They reside in the Ashen Hills. Once there, it is kind of difficult to leave, because if you try to leave, well, you can't go west to the fire slopes, you can't go south to the burning shore, and you really can't go east, because then you're trying to hit, Scavia and the Mist Swamps and so forth and so on.
You've got the Scarlet Sea and the Mist Swamps, and there's not really any way to get there. And you can't go north, because then you're into the Grey Forest, and if you're an outcast and other trolls find you, they are going to kill you.
On sight. No questions asked.
And so most exiled Crystal Raiders will end up here if they aren't able somehow to get outside of the Twilight Peaks entirely.
Yeah. If they're banished, if they head south, they're going to end up here. If they head anywhere else, they're going to take their chances and try and, hit the rest of Barsave. So this Kava moot basically means mud. So this mud moot, Kava moot, has no chief, because they're all, again, outcasts. But some individuals have exerted a command over some small groups. Draptha Iceblood is one of those people. They are a 3rd Circle Sky Raider and a 6th Circle Outcast, which Outcast Warrior is no longer a
discipline. It is now a path, but there would be potentially a lot of outcasts that are part of the Exiles.
Yeah.
It is not exclusively an exile troll thing, but there are certainly a significant number of outcasts that would be part of the exile community.
Yes, absolutely.
She would probably be redone as a higher circle Sky Raider with the outcast path.
Yeah.
Probably maybe like a 5th or 6th circle Sky Raider, because that would need to be minimum 5th in order to become an outcast.
Mm-hmm.
But then probably a 3rd or 4th rank
in
outcast, possibly even 5th. I don't remember how many ranks Outcast has off the top of my head.
I think it's only 5.
I think it is only 5.
Yeah, so
but I would be inclined to make her pretty high in that path.
I agree. I'd go 3rd or 4th myself in this one, because they've been at this a while. So the interesting thing about the Kava moot is, obviously you were banished. You were an outcast. So you have your honor was slighted, which is why you are lost your horns. But the outcasts that are here in this Kava moot kind of see it differently, as far as this is a gift from some odd beliefs, basically, based upon the passions. So some see exile as a gift from Thistonius to actually challenge them. Others embrace Thoranius, and these are the fire dancers. that reside in the Ashen Hills. Some have this belief that Garlen has blessed them, and now they're the keepers of the hearth fire. And Jolen, Heartfire, Sixth Circle Warrior as well, rank 7 quester for Garlen, is also among them, and so has their own little tiny band. And then some have this belief that Ragok is testing them, and because they have formed their own little band called the Avengers of Honor, led by Rugar Copperblood.
Because many of them have been exiled over matters of honor, it is not uncommon for them to be swallowed by bitterness and thoughts of vengeance against those who they feel have wronged them, which gives the Mad Passion ample opportunity to get his hooks into them and drive them to his worship and his devotion.
Totally. So, depending upon who you come across when you send your party to the Ashen Hills, just the points of view you can encounter. The Exile from Thistonius, the Embracing of Floranius, the Fire Dancers, Garlen, and Ragok. That is just a milieu of 4 different passions in this Venn diagram of people living there.
Those are the ones noted, but there is ample place to have more. Any kind of weird little cult or belief group. There's no broad organization among the Exiles. They kind of form whatever communities they can. In some cases, some of them are barely better than cave trolls in terms of where they are, in terms of their ability. But you kind of have, in one sense, almost a microcosm of the Twilight Peaks as a whole within this small area, where you've got a whole bunch of smaller but different troll cultures, troll societies that have kind of sprung up around this shared idea of them all being exiles, but the beliefs and myths and stories that they tell themselves and the pseudo-religious practices that might have sprung up around these sorts of things could all potentially come into conflict and cause problems. Resources are scarce enough in much the same way that you would have the various troll moots that we've talked about raiding and kind of going against each other occasionally. You could have these little groups coming into conflict and raiding each other for supplies, and really just almost kind of a microcosm of the broader Crystal Raider culture.
Yeah, because just because they're all outcasts together doesn't mean that they're all outcasts together. They are still all from their own little troll moots, and so there's probably still some of those rivalries in there. Not just the fact that, you're an outcast, I'm an outcast, we should get together and maybe we have something in common. No, F you. We have the Stoneclaws who still hate these guys and all these other things going on among the outcasts themselves. So, rife with conflict, rife with personality, rife with just people not getting along, even though they're now at their absolute bottom in terms of their lifestyle, their beliefs, their support system. That's it. Yeah, throw that in the mix. This is just the smorgasbord or salad bar of just pick and choose what you want to put in these outcasts, and it's yours to play with. Because you can play with this moot who has this idea, this moot who has this idea, put them together with the outcasts. Just take one from each moot idea and put it with the outcasts, and then just, toss in some seasoning, go.
Or you could even use this environment as a way to compare and contrast with the other moots, with the more traditional, honorable moots, and sort of maybe potentially highlight some of the problems that lie at the root of Crystal Raider culture in terms of how they approach the world and deal with things. Being able to use that opportunity, especially if you're dealing with characters that are coming in from outside the Twilight Peaks.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity there to provide even more variety in terms of the Crystal Raider culture, to continue to fragment that monoculture idea that kind of sometimes gets presented with them.
Yeah, this is the grab bag. The Kava moot is just, like I said, the ultimate grab bag of, okay, you like trolls, but none of the moots really suited you as far as how to use them in your campaign. Go to the Kava moot instead and throw in exactly what you want.
Yeah, that's something that could potentially be a problem unless you are running a particularly focused Crystal Raider or Troll game, you probably wouldn't have somebody that is from this area.
No.
That is very difficult. I think what you're more likely to deal with, and we're going to kind of get into this when we talk about some of the subcultures, the living legend cults that are among this community, is the ancient ruins that are found throughout this area. And what you are going to do is, if you've got a group that is coming here investigating some old legend or trying to find something key knowledge is about a thread item or whatever, they are going to come into this area that is just rife with conflicts and needing to navigate the political situation that exists within these various subgroups.
Yeah. And that's going to be a social challenge as well as a physical challenge. So that'll broaden your party's horizons infinitely when they get down there. So to Josh's point, we have a couple of other subgroups to talk about. So that's mostly the Kava moot right there. Then there are the living legend cults, of which there are two we can get to. The followers of Nemar. These are also Crystal Raider outcasts. They are following the legend of Nemar Firewalker, led by Regoam Goldfinder, who is a quester of Upandal and fifth circle, rank 4 quester of Upandal and a fifth circle outcast warrior. But again, that's now a path, so I have to change them up a little bit for 4th edition. But do you want to tell us, Josh, if you know the legend of Nemar Firewalker?
Well, Nemar Firewalker is the troll that, according to legend, brought the airships to the trolls.
Right.
What this group is dedicated to, they believe that the ruins that he found the first airships in are still somewhere here in the Ashen Hills. And so they are sort of scouring the ruins and the ancient sites around here, trying to find that location or to find whatever kind of ancient knowledge or relics that they might be able to recover and perhaps return to their homes, to their original moots as heroes for having recovered this legendary stuff.
Yeah, fair.
Depending on your point of view, the other outcasts that are not part of this group think they kind of suck because they're willing to bribe or bargain or wheedle their way back in to where they had been before. And that is sort of an insult to, to their honor.
Yeah.
The others feel that this should be an insult to their personal honor, that they are not standing firm in support of the thing that got them exiled. Whereas the followers themselves feel that they are the only ones who are honorable and the ones that are being true to things.
Yes. Because
they are more interested in the honor of their race or their clan as opposed to their own personal honor. Again, highlighting the variety of interpretations that you can have when it comes to troll honor and how one approaches it.
Totally. So lots of toys to play with in that sandbox, just of the followers of Nemar. Then there's the living legend cult of the Watchers of Death. These outcasts live actually near Death Sea, so they're further away from the Ashen Hills and closer to the burning shores. Plenty of them are magicians, banned from the Black Fang moot. So mostly elementalists, a lot of nethermancers, occasionally both. So this is a fun group.
Yeah. Popular perception from outside the group is that they are a death cult that worships death, when in fact that is not quite the case. The Watchers of Death believe that they are dedicated to keeping death sealed away.
Yeah.
They often watch the roiling lava and the cooler and hotter spots and the patterns and the designs that show up in the cracks and the
fissures,
geysers and fissures and so forth within Death Sea, and often kind of use that as a kind of scrying or omen, the same way that others might read
tea leaves,
runes, or the innards of a chicken that they cut open, or anything along those lines. Like, they use that as omens and auguries and things like that.
Yeah.
They are interested in studying death, but in the sense of knowing their enemy, of knowing perhaps by gaining this knowledge that they might help keep death sealed away, as opposed to the keys of death, for example, who are much more interested in releasing death. They're hoping perhaps to learn key knowledges or perhaps recover pattern items, if any exist, for Death's Sea as a way of helping strengthen the binding of death beneath it.
Yeah.
So they are creepy, weird, esoteric, bizarre. I think long-term harmless. When it comes to the groups there, this might be an organization or a cult that player characters might be interested in because of the arcane lore that they are gathering. And perhaps maybe if you've got a group that is doing some kind of quest to bring a fallen member back to life, like we've talked about some of the other legends about going to petition death, they might have knowledge that could help in terms of a quest along those lines, or just any other kind of esoteric and unusual lore about death spirits or fire spirits or things like that would be found through the study of things where they are balanced on the edge of this liminal space of life and death and fire and air and all that sort of thing.
I would, and I want to preface this. I do not mean this as a slight or an insult. I find it as an oddity to point out. I think the Watchers of Death would draw a comparison, at least in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, to kind of a gypsy band. And again, I don't mean a slight on gypsies. I love them to death. It's just somebody on the fringes, a little outside, and other people would view them as slightly strange because these are the Watchers of Death.
Yeah, I don't know that I would go that far.
That's fine.
I can see what you're getting at in terms of a group that is marginalized and kind of on the edges of society.
Even the edges of this edge of society. So
yeah, I don't see that really being the case.
Fair.
With this group. I see where you're coming from, but I don't know that I would agree with that.
That's fine. It's an interpretation. Had to lay it out there. So lastly, not lastly, we have one more. Second to last, we have the Pirates of the Scarlet Sea. Now, these pirates are not Crystal Raiders. They can be trolls. They can be orcs. They can be whoever's in the air operating these ships. Now, the Pirates of the Scarlet Sea are pretty much, I can't say ignored, but the troll moots that are around, the Stoneclaws and the Black Fangs and everybody else, don't care about the Pirates of the Scarlet Sea. They actually see this as, okay, fine. That's what troll culture does. If you're strong enough to take it, you get to take it. So the pirates get to take things. What the troll moots may not know is that some of these pirates are Theron privateers using Theron slaving ships to do their pirating. So that could be an interesting... I'm not entirely sure how to work that in. If your player characters are going to come across the pirates and maybe one of the legitimate troll moots, not legitimate, one of the north, central, or western troll moots know about this. So there's something here you can probably lace in further on for a longer development campaign. I think
the pirates, broadly speaking, are just sort of a thing that is there to provide a potential threat to travel in that area, particularly airship travel, or to fire mining operations or things like that. Mm-hmm. And so some of them are Theron, some of them are independent.
Yeah.
This gives you a reason to have a hazard that is not necessarily a Crystal Raider band that you might run into when you're dealing with this environment and this part of Barsave.
Fair.
The Pirates of the Scarlet Sea would be something that would be a threat, I imagine, that some of the mining companies and so forth out of Travar would probably be very interested in dealing with in some capacity.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're something that could ever be particularly eradicated because they're not really broadly organized in any sense. Mm-hmm. You know, they're kind of like the independent ships and pirates on the Serpent River that aren't affiliated with any Aropagoi. They're just a hazard that you sometimes need to deal with.
Yeah. They're just there. They exist. And it just fleshes out the region a little bit more. So not that the the Kavamoot was left alone and there's not really any external threat because they've been outcast already. No. There's the pirates of the Scarlet Sea you have to worry about as well. And so do they. So one of those things. The last thing we should talk about is Votana. Josh, take it away.
Votana, the Grey Woman. She is a legendary, mystical, mysterious figure that nobody knows really where she lives, but she is something that has been part of the Twilight Peaks for as long as anybody can recall. She presumably has a home that is hidden somewhere in the Grey Forest, but nobody knows where it is. She has appeared at various times, either in person or in dreams, to various trolls in the Twilight Peaks. She is tall, but she might not be a troll. Nobody has ever actually really seen her. She is always wrapped up completely in these ash gray robes, including, a headpiece that completely obscures her head, except for where her eyes are visible, and her skin is also sort of ashy gray.
Mm-hmm.
Because of where she lives and her size, many people assume that she is a troll, but others say that she moves with the grace of an elf. There's various other sort of things that go on. She's this kind of mysterious, I almost want to say Baba Yaga kind of figure.
Yeah.
I don't think that she necessarily has quite the nasty undertones that Baba Yaga has, but I get that similar kind of vibe in terms of this mysterious, powerful sorceress.
Yeah.
And will appear to people, or people can seek her out when they are in need of something, and she might provide the information or strike a deal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of her nature is not revealed. It is said that she has been appearing more frequently in this book, and perhaps that is something that is related to the growing conflict with the Therans and whatnot at the time that this book was written.
Probably.
Perhaps trying to work things herself to start maybe getting the moots working together.
Yeah.
She's this weird, iconic, legendary figure that does exist, but there's just a bunch of different stories about how she has appeared to various notable figures in Crystal Raider culture recently and even further back. I get the feeling, in a sense, that there are stories of the Grey Woman going back even before the Scourge. Mm-hmm. The question is this the same Grey Woman, or is this something that is handed down individual to individual, or something along those lines?
Yeah.
She's just a sort of weird, mysterious, enigmatic figure. Is she something akin to the Passions? Is she a powerful spirit? Is she some kind of...
Is she a ghost?
Ghost or immortal name giver of some... We don't know. It's not clear. She's powerful. She's mysterious.
Yep.
Similar to, like, the Old Man of the Nets from Tiskrang legend.
Oh, yeah.
This feels like something along those lines. Like, this is this sort of legendary culture hero in the classic, like, Greek myth sense.
Mm-hmm.
That will show up when things are portentous, kind of showing up to nudge things one way or the other for reasons that aren't quite clear to everybody. And it doesn't appear to necessarily be malignant or evil, but also is not necessarily always friendly and benign.
So kind of like a Game Master Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, in a little bit of a sense, you could certainly look at it that way. She is considered by the trolls of the Twilight Peaks to be more of a force of nature than a person.
That makes sense.
No one can say whether Votana's appearance will be a blessing, a curse, or neither, but all of the Tromoots have learned to be polite and respectful of the Grey Woman when she chooses to grace them with her presence. When you think of clans like the Bloodlords, this is someone who makes them respectful. There's quite a bit of mystery and interest
and intrigue
around her.
Yeah. So I figured that's a pretty darn good, well-sized, very fleshed out sandbox in just the southern Twilight Peaks, with all 4 of those areas, all those personalities, the couple of living legend cults, Votana, the pirates, and the Kavamoot. Wow, that can keep you entertained for a good long time before you even get to the actual other troll moots we've already talked about. So the remnants here is this.
If you've got a group that is messing around on the southern slopes for whatever reason, there is plenty that they could encounter and plenty of interesting things that can happen as they deal with this area.
Yeah, I reading through the essays on this part, I have this recurring vision in my head of somebody stepping on just this differently colored volcanic ash, falling through a crevasse 20, 30 yards, and coming across old ruins of some kind that haven't been touched because they're in this old volcanic, pocket, and this gigantic castle or care or something is there, and you're just like, oh, well then. And, there you go. There's another little side jaunt to your adventure, or maybe that's the whole point of your adventure. I don't know, but I have this recurring vision in my head of that happening. So I need to write that down and make that happen one of these days.
Yeah.
Because I do. So any final thoughts on this sandbox playground?
I've covered everything that I want to say in regards to this.
Fair.
I think continuing to provide variety and differences and little groups and personalities and organizations that would have their own goals and whatnot that would be interesting to interact with or to be related somehow to an idea. There's an adventure idea in there connecting the Watchers of Death, like where the Keys of Death maybe gain an interest in them.
As through all the things that we've done so far that are drawing from first edition, because this is a first edition book, this is some of the best writing in the first edition material, is the fleshing out of these troll.
Yeah. In terms of the world building and the setting development for this area, it is really good. And I'm not surprised, honestly. Yeah. It was Steve Kenson, who is, first off, a great guy.
Yeah.
And has written a bunch of other stuff and has, I've sung his praises before. This is
rightfully so.
Really good work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done, Steve. So until next time, folks, don't get caught in the southern slopes of the Twilight Peaks, because this is not a nice place to be.
Good night, everybody.